Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Jagannath Prabhu, Hari Hari. Who all we have with us today? Can we just see who all have joined? Adi Lakshman, Dhruv, Vrajpriya, Riyansh, Shikant, Padmanabh, Maisha, Shreya Aditi, Varuni. All right, is my sound okay? Great, thank you. Thank you all for joining. Let's begin with our program. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatai Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Everyone, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today we are on the 42nd episode of this Mahabharata series, and we'll be starting with a new parva or the new book of Mahabharata titled as Mausala Parva. What does Mausala means? I'll explain in a short while. However, before we begin, what book number is this? Who remembers the book number? How many books of Mahabharata? How many parvas have we finished? What's your guess? Okay, somebody would like to give an answer? Paki.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Paki.
This this Parva's number is 16th.
Yes, thank you. Wonderful. We're on the 16th Parva or the 16th book of Mahabharata, and we have two more books of Mahabharata to cover. So prior to this, we had discussed about the book 15th Ashram Vasika Parva, wherein we saw that Vidura, after more than 36 years, around 36 years, he had returned back to Hastinapur. And he came to take Dhritarashtra and Gandhari to the forest so that they can live a final stage of life or the final phase of life as renunciates and focus and dedicated their remaining life in the service of the Lord. Like that, Vidura came and Kuru's elders went along with Vidura to the forest. Along with Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, Kunti also left. And when Pandavas heard this, they were really heartbroken at that point of time. After some time, Yudhishthira Maharaj began to observe many bad omens. Omens refers to indications. Many bad indications in the nature, like trembling of the earth, eruption of volcanoes, the sky becoming red color. So these are some of the indications which are explained, which indicates unforced, inevitable destruction. Something very inauspicious is about to happen. So when Yudhishthira saw this, he became worried. Arjuna was not at that point of time at Hastinapur. Arjuna was at Dwarka. He had gone a few months ago to meet Krishna and had remained at Dwarka for all this while. So Yudhishthira Maharaj called for Bhima and began to speak to Bhima and said, Bhima, looking at all this inauspicious omens, it becomes very clear that our Krishna, Lord Shri Krishna, must have departed, must have left this world. If Krishna was present, how is it possible for such kind of inauspiciousness to happen? Hey Bhima, do you see the trembling of the earth? Do you see the smoke-filled sky? Do you see the wind? How severe windstorms are happening? Do you see now the son are dying before the father? Do you see people are becoming corrupted? Brahmanas are cheating the people, Kshatriyas are not doing their administrative duties, and Vaishyas are exploiting the cows, the land, and the Shudras. The principles of Dharma are getting destroyed despite our presence. People are not afraid of us anymore. Like that, Yudhishthira Maharaj began to speak and express his fear that looks like Krishna have left this world. When like this, Yudhishthira Maharaj was speaking to Bhima, at that point of time, Arjuna arrived. Well, Arjuna did not arrive. The messenger arrived, saying that, my dear king, the glorious, the carrier of Gandiva bow, Arjuna have arrived from Dwarka. Yudhishthira, Bhima, Nakul, Sahadev, everyone went running to welcome Arjuna. And when they saw Arjuna, they all were shocked. Arjuna's face was pale. He had tears filled, he had tears in his eyes. And he was shaking while walking. And Yudhishthira Maharaj was petrified. Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Arjuna, Arjuna, what happened? Why are you so sad? Did anyone came to you for help and you could not protect that person? Or did anyone defeated you? Or did anyone insulted you and you could not protect your integrity? Like that, Yudhishthira Maharaj began to speak to Arjuna. And then Arjuna finally disclosed the reason that why is he so sad. So if you all remember, when Vidura had come back to Hastinapur, that time Yudhishthira Maharaj had asked about the well-being of the Yadavas. Yudhishthira Maharaj asked, my dear uncle, how is Krishna? How are Yadus? Does anyone know what Vidura uncle said to Yudhishthira at that point of time? Was Krishna still there or Krishna had departed away? When Vidura came to meet, what had happened at that point of time? What did Vidura tell Yudhishthira Maharaj when Vidura asked Yudhishthira Maharaj, when Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Vidura about the well-being of all the Yadus? Who remembers? Okay, Madhavi. Let's start with the younger one.
Prabhuji, I remember that you said he did not answer immediately, but he answered. He actually, when Vidura came, Krishna had already departed from the world.
Yes. So what did Vidura reply to Yudhishthira? Did he say anything?
Not immediately after Yudhishthira Maharaj's question.
Yes. So Vidura did not respond to Yudhishthira's question. And the reason, because Vidura thought the bad news would come on its own. Why should I be the propagator of the bad news? What's up, Srirang? You're trying out some new fashion styles with you or what? I guess you should focus on the session than more on the different hats you are trying onto your face. So very interesting point Viduraji taught from that. We should not be the propagator of the bad news, as the bad news will come on its own. So Lord Shri Krishna had already departed away. And now Arjuna had come, and Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Arjuna, hey Arjuna, why are you grieving because our dear Lord Krishna have finally parted away? What's the reason? And then Arjuna began to describe what all had happened when he was not at Hastinapur. He began to explain how the Lord eventually disappeared from this world. And this book 16 of Mausala Parv, what we're going to discuss today, we'll be discussing the first part, that is disappearance of the Yadu Vamsha. And tomorrow evening when we meet, we'll be discussing about the disappearance of Lord Shri Krishna. So here Arjuna begins to explain to Yudhishthira Maharaj what all happened in the last few months, how the Yadavas, the most powerful, the sons, the brothers, the uncles, the relatives of Lord Shri Krishna could ever get destroyed. So this word Mausala or Mausala refers to a wooden rod. Not a wooden rod. You know, is some, आप लोगों ने kitchen में देखा होगा your mother having, not a wooden, the stone slab kind of thing which she uses to crush grains. That's what the best I could explain. So that is what Mausala Parv. In other words, this Parv is centered around this some sharp wooden pestle or the rod, which will eventually become the weapon for the Yadavas to destroy each other. So this Parva, the 16th book of Mahabharata, describes about the disappearance of Yadavas. Describes about the disappearance of Yadavas or Yaduvamsha and also of Lord Shri Krishna. So let's begin our discussion. Before we begin, I'll raise one question. So did Krishna appear because of the curse of Gandhari? Because Gandhari had cursed Krishna. What was the curse of Gandhari to Krishna? What did Gandhari tell to Krishna? Yes, Riyansh.
Prabhuji, Gandhari had cursed Krishna that all Yaduvamsha will die themselves.
Okay. Who will give more precise answer? Correct, Riyansh. Lakya. Go ahead.
Prabhuji, she cursed that from in the Kurukshetra, she cursed that from 36 years from now, Yadu dynasty will be destroyed.
How would it be destroyed? She explained that also.
Yes, she told that one person he will give to a birth means he will give birth to something
No, no,
and
no, no,
land
no, no.
will destroy.
She didn't give those details. She said, just like my sons have died in a fratricidal war. Okay, let Rishabdev conclude the answer. He's dancing in joy right now. Where is Rishabdev? Go ahead, Rishabdev.
It was like Gandhari that the Yadu Vanshas will fight against themselves and kill them.
Yes, just like my sons have fought with their brothers and have been killed. Similarly, your Yadu Vamsha, the relatives would fight with the relative, the son would fight with the father, the brother will fight with the brother, and they will kill themselves. All right, don't be discouraged. We'll ask more questions. You'll have an answer to give. Hang on. So, yes, that's the thing. So, let's get into a discussion. And let me just share the screen once again. Yeah. So let's get into the story of how Yadu Vamsha got destroyed. What's the background of it? So let's go into the beginning of the time, not beginning of the time, beginning of this Mahabharata, beginning of the Lord Shri Krishna's Leela. Way before than that, Mother Earth, Bhumi Devi, was really traumatized by the increase of the sinful people. She was very much challenged and troubled by the sinful activities of the impious leaders. So she went to Brahma and she complained, she sought for help. At that point of time, Brahma, along with other Devatas and Bhumi, went to Shir Sagar to offer prayers to Shirodaksha Vishnu. They offered prayers, Shirodaksha Vishnu appeared, and Shirodaksha Vishnu said, Hey Brahma, Mother Earth, Bhumi Devi, I will very soon appear. I will appear in Yaduvamsha at such a such point of time. I want all of you to appear and to take part in my Leela or pastime. Like that, all the relatives, all the Yajuvamshas, they were not ordinary. They were either eternal associates of the Lord who had descended from the spiritual world, or else they were the incarnations or manifestations of Devatas who had appeared. So now, when this Kurukshetra war had ended, Lord Shri Krishna appears in this world as he says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glane bhavati bharata. Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya chadushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So one of the purpose of Lord Shri Krishna's descent is to establish religion and destroy the sinful people or the empires. So Lord Shri Krishna began to think, I have accomplished the purpose, but yet there is one race which is remaining, which could become a big threat for me of after me when I return back to Godhead. Because Lord Shri Krishna's objective of establishing dharma was done when Krishna had established Yudhishthira Maharaj to be the king of the world. Lord Shri Krishna's purpose was fulfilled. And now Lord Shri Krishna was preparing to return back to Goloka Vrindavan to his eternal abode. So at that point of time, Lord Shri Krishna began to think, well, if I return back to Goloka Vrindavan and leave Yadavas behind, what will Yadavas do? They are so powerful that even Devatas cannot fight with them. And in my absence, these Yadavas will become very, very powerful, and there are a lot of chances of conflicts happening again between the Kshatriya race. Secondly, the Kali Yuga was about to begin. Thirdly, Lord Shri Krishna had asked all of them to appear in this world to be part of his Leela. So when Lord Shri Krishna is concluding his Leela, so what would these Yadus will do on this planet Earth? So like this, Lord Shri Krishna began to think, and he now created a plan. He thought of an incident how I can take all this Yadu Vamsha along with me. Rather, I should send them before then I leave this world. And that's how Lord Shri Krishna thought of an incident which could create a conflict between the Yadu Vamsha. Because only Yadu Vamsha, when they fight with each other, they can destroy themselves. Otherwise, there is no power in this world or in the creation can ever destroy or fight with Yadu Vamsha. If there could be a quarrel within the dynasty and if they take up weapons against each other, only then they'll be able to destroy. Just like the forest fire. Nobody goes to set fire in the forest. Forest fire happens because of the friction of two bamboos. When a friction of bamboos happen, the whole forest gets burnt. Similarly, Krishna thought if there could be a friction between even two yadus, and I'm speaking specifically because this whole incident started with the friction between two yadus. If the friction can happen between even two yadus, they will act like a bamboos, causing friction against each other, and the whole forest of Yadu Vamsha will be burned to ashes. Like that, Lord Shri Krishna planned this whole incident, what is about to happen. So, question arises: how did this internal quarrel happen? How does Yadu Vamsha fought with each other? That was a plan of Lord Shri Krishna. So, how did Lord fulfill his plan? So, it is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam that once great sages headed by Vishwamitra Muni, Asita, Durvasa, Bhragu, Angira, Kashyapa, Atri, Narada Muni, you name it, all the great sages had assembled in the palace of Vasudev, the father of Vasudev. And they performed a great religious sacrifice. And at the end of the great religious sacrifice, they all went to a coastal place near to Dwarka. At that point of time, Lord's illusory energy inspired Samba. Who was Samba? Does anyone know? Whose son was Samba? Whose son was Samba? Yes, Chandrika. Oh, Hari Darshan, nice to see you. Today you have a holiday? Go ahead, unmute yourself.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Happy to see you. So you have an answer? Who was Samba?
He was the son of Jambanti.
Yes, Jambati. Okay, great. So the young Yadavas, or the young prince, or the group of princes, not the princes, the Rajkumaras, the young Rajkumaras, they went to the place where all the sages had assembled. And they went to that place and they dressed Samba as a pregnant woman. So the male dressed into a female and put a pillow in front of the belly as if this is a pregnant lady. And those young Yadu prince brought Samba in front of Narad Muni and Angira Muni, and they said, my dear sage, this is the very chaste lady from Dwarka. She has come all the way from Dwarka to you to ask, whom would she give birth? Male or female? It's very interesting. Narad Muni was present here. It is explained, even Narad Muni got angry. Now, why Narad Muni, Angira Muni, and all other sages got angry? Now, these young Rajkumaras were playing a joke with such a great elevated sages. Now, when it comes to joke, you can crack jokes with your friends, but not with teachers, not with great sages like Narad Muni, Angira Muni, and whatnot. So again, influenced by Lord's energy, Narad Muni, Angira Muni, they all became very angry. And that time, one of the sages there cursed Samba because they knew who Samba is. And they said, how dare you make fun of the sages? You bring a male in front of us dressed as a woman? This is such a rude behavior. You should not joke with the sadhus or the seniors, and therefore we curse you. And the sages became very angry, and they said, we curse you that this lady will give birth to an iron club. That will become the cause of destruction of your entire dynasty. Now, all these young princes or the young Rajkumaras, they were terrified. Although they were joking, but they knew the curse of the sages will come true. So question arises, how the sages like Narad Muni and other great personalities can become so angry? The qualities of sadhus as described in the scriptures. This is the homework verse for all of you. Tatikshava karunikaha suhrida sarvadehinam ajata shatrava shanta sadhava sadhubhushana. The sadhu is recognized by the following qualities. He's tolerant, he's compassionate, he's well-wisher of all. He does not have any enemy. He's equipoised. He follows scriptures. So how such sages could become angry? And acharyas explain they became angry because that was a plan and the desire of the Lord. Upon hearing the curse, the Samba would give birth to an iron club, which will become the cause of destruction of the whole dynasty. All the young princes ran back to Dwarka. They went running to Ugrasen, who was the king of Dwarka, and they told what had happened. Ugrasen was scared himself. And next day, as the sages had predicted, Samba actually gave birth to an iron rod or a club. And when that happened, everyone in Dwarka was shocked. And that iron club was brought in front of Ugrasen. You can imagine what will be the situation of Ugrasen. This club, this metal rod is going to destroy a whole dynasty. What to do? So the king ordered, let us crush this iron club into small pieces like a powder. So they did it. However, they could not crush everything. Small piece of metal remained. And the king said, let us go and throw this powder, crushed iron powder, into the ocean so that we have no harm. So following the order of Ugrasen, they went and threw the powder into the ocean, and also with the small piece of metal that remained behind the iron into the ocean. Now, ocean has a very interesting feature. And what is that? Whatever you throw into it, it throws back to you, right? How many of you have gone into the ocean for swimming? The more you swim in, the more the ocean throws you back onto the shore, right? The waves come and they throw you back onto the shore. That's what happened. They threw the powdered iron ore into the ocean, and the waves brought all that powdered iron back onto the ocean beach or on the shore. And there, on this shore, on this beach, this powdered iron turned into an iron rods. And this piece of metal, which one piece of metal which remained, which was thrown into the ocean, that was eaten by a fish. So there was a hunter, or you can call as a fisherman, by the name of Jara. Oh no, there was not a fisherman, there was a hunter by the name of Jara. So the fisherman, when he went to fishing in the ocean, he caught the fish, and this particular fish, and when he cut open the belly of the fish, there he found this metal. And he gave this piece of iron to a hunter by the name of Jara. And that hunter used that piece of iron and he made the sharp end of the arrow. And this has a reason, this has a story. All this happened, but Lord Shri Krishna did not interfere, although he is a controller of the time. He is a controller of everyone's destiny, just because Lord Shri Krishna had orchestrated this whole plan to send Yadus back either to their Devalokas from where they had come, or else back to Goloka Vrindavan. So after this, everyone became silent. Everyone tried to forget what Samba and other boys had done. Ugrasen remained silent. Nobody told Krishna what had happened, as if Krishna doesn't know what's happening in Dwarka. And one day, Lord Shri Krishna called for an assembly of all the Yadus. And Lord Shri Krishna said, please note all these terrible omens. Omens means again the indications. That time in Dwarka, by the will and the desire of Lord Shri Krishna, There were inauspicious symptoms or the signs that were manifesting, like the trembling of the earth, severe windstorms, non-seasonal rains. Even when it is not a season for rains, the rains will happen. The sun's heat became very scorching. When it used to be cold, it became extremely cold, and it would never happen before. Lord Shri Krishna said, called all the Yadu kings and all the Yadu Kshatriyas there, and he said, do you look at it? This is all an indication of the destruction of our dynasty. So therefore, I request all of you to go to a place called as Prabhas Kshetra, which is ocean bank, which is near to the ocean. Please go to this place called Prabhas Kshetra, and all of you, all the Yadus should perform great sacrifice, Vedic sacrifice. They should give a lot of charity to Brahmanas and the cows. Whatever sin, whatever mistake all of you have done, we can only get freedom from it if we can please Brahmanas and the cows, and we can perform this Vedic sacrifice. The woman, the children, and old man should leave the city immediately and go to a place called as Shankodhara, and all other men should go to Prabhas Kshetra to perform this sacrifice. Only if we are able to do this religious sacrifice properly, then only we can save the Dwarka from the impending danger. Like that, Lord Shri Krishna sent everyone out of Dwarka. The woman, the elders, and the kids went to a place called as Shankodhara, and all the men went to a place of Prabhas Kshetra. Now, why Prabhas Kshetra? Why Lord Shri Krishna asked them to go to Prabhas Kshetra? Anyone knows? Why Lord Shri Krishna amongst all the other places chose Prabhas Kshetra? Why Lord Shri Krishna asked all the Yadus to go and perform religious sacrifice at Prabhas Kshetra? Okay. Two people have raised their hand. I don't know who to. Adi Lakshman, I see your hand. Go ahead.
The metal any cause and destruction to them while doing the sacrifice or before the sacrifice, because the metal has came near the seashore or the sea line, so it may be there itself. So
Yeah,
it may
so
cause a
great.
destruction to them.
So Adi Lakshman is making a good point and the correct point. The point is Prabhas Kshetra was the place where the ocean waves had brought back all that powdered iron. And that powdered iron had got planted into that sand beach there and had turned into a plantation, turned into a grass. So Lord Shri Krishna, because that was his plan, that's the reason he brought everyone to a place called as Prabhas Kshetra to perform this religious sacrifice. So all these Vrishnis and the Yadavas went to the seashore and they began to perform their religious sacrifice. And in the group of these Yadavas, there were two personalities. There were two bamboo sticks who were about to run with each other, cause a friction, because of it generate a fire and destroy the whole forest of Yadavas. Who were these two people among whom the argument was about to begin? And this argument would lead to a groupism, and whole Yadavas and Vrishnis will get divided into two groups. And the father will fight with the son, brother and brother will fight, the friends and friends will fight with each other, and they will destroy each other. Does anyone know who were these two personalities? Let me give you a hint. These two personalities were also present in the war of Mahabharata. Let me give you a second hint. These two personalities had survived the war of Mahabharata. Let me give you a third hint. One of this personality was at the side of Pandavas, and the other personality had fought on the side of Kauravas. Now I have given you everything. Only remaining for me is to tell you the names. Now everyone should raise their hands, because there were only a handful of people who have survived the war. Who had survived from the side of Krishna's army at Pandava side, and who had survived at the Kaurava side? Who were these two people who belonged to Dwarka? Who were these two people? Okay. All right, Dhruvam. All right. Go ahead.
Prabhuji, I think that Satyaki and Kritavarma.
Yes, Satyaki and Kritavarma. That's a simple answer. Anyways, hardly any people have left, survived post-war. Great, thank you. You got the clue. So, again, by the will of the Lord, all the Yadus were served a sweet beverage, a drink. And this drink had an intoxicating effect. So when Kshatriya gets intoxicated, it's better for us to run away from that place. Because if Kshatriya is intoxicated, they're drunk, they only fight. And that's what happened here. So here these Kshatriyas got intoxicated, and Satyaki and Kritavarma came in front of each other. So as I said, Satyaki was on the side of Pandavas, he was a student of Arjuna, and Kritavarma, Lord Shri Krishna had sent Kritavarma along with his army to the side of Duryodhana. So here, Satyaki began to chastise Kritavarma. He said, "You are a coward. How you can attack the Pandavas' camp in the night time, along with Ashwathama and Kripacharya, and kill all the remaining warriors at the Pandava side? You were responsible for the death of the 5 sons of Pandavas. It is not an act of a bravery, it's an act of a cowardice. You are a coward. You don't deserve to be a Kshatriya." Like this, Satyaki began to publicly insult Kritavarma. So when Kritavarma heard this, he became angry. He said, "How dare you, Satyaki, tell me that I did a mistake? You are a one during the war who had killed a person who had laid his weapons. And that great warrior was Burishava." He said, Kritavarma said to Satyaki, "Satyaki, Burishava had laid his weapons. He was without weapons. And yet you attacked him and killed him. You are a coward." Like this, Satyaki and Kritavarma were like 2 bamboo sticks. They started to rub against each other. That generated friction, the sparks, and the whole Vrishni dynasty or Yadu Vamsha began to take sides. Everyone joined. Some supported Satyaki, some supported Kritavarma. Like this, whole group got divided too. And finally, it began with a fist fighting. Satyaki punched Kritavarma, Kritavarma punched Satyaki, and then they began to punch each other. Then they took out their sword, they took out their bows and arrows, they took out their clubs, whatever they had, they began to fight with each other. And they are killing each other. And Krishna and Balram, right in front of their eyes, the whole Yaduvamsha is bent on destroying each other. And that brings us to the second part of this book, the destruction of Yadus. When Lord Shri Krishna and Balram saw this, they tried to intervene. They tried to stop the fighting brothers. They tried to stop the son from killing his own father. You know what happened then? What these Yadus did? They all united and they all attacked Krishna and Balram. They were so intoxicated, they were so bewildered by Lord Shri Krishna's external energy, they forgot the enmity between them. They picked up the weapon and they started chasing after Krishna and Balram. At that time, Krishna and Balram, because they didn't have a weapon that time, they picked out the grass which had grown into that sand beach. And when they took out the grass, as soon as it got the grass in the hand, that grass turned into a thunderbolt. It turned into a very sharp weapon. And with that, Krishna and Balram began to fight and attack all the Yadus who were coming. And when all the Yadus saw that how the grass had turned into a thunderbolt, they dropped all their weapons. You know, the sage had said, this iron club will become the cause of the destruction of dynasty. So all the Yadus uprooted the grass from that beach. And as soon as they uprooted the grass, that grass turned into a thunderbolt, a very sharp, powerful weapon. And because of the curse of the Brahmana, the sage, and because of Lord's illusory energy, external energy, everyone's intelligence being covered, they forgot who they are, what's their relationship, and they began to fight with each other. And that brought about the destruction of the whole Yadu Vamsha. Everyone had died. Only who survived was Krishna and Balaram. Lord Shri Krishna thought to himself at that point, finally, the burden of earth had been removed. All the Yadus have departed. That's the end of it. Balaramji decided that it's time for me to return back. Now Yadus have gone. Krishna is also going to leave. Let me also conclude my pastime. He went and sat into a yoga posture. He closed his eyes. Srimad Bhagavatam says, Lord Shri Balaram sat in his trance position and suddenly he disappeared from that place and went back to Goloka Vrindavan. Mahabharata gives a very interesting reference. Mahabharata says that Balramji went into a trance, a yogic meditation, and from his nose or from his mouth, came the great serpent Vasuki. Because Balramji, right? And that Vasuki entered into the ocean, and that's how Lord Balramji disappeared. Lord Shri Krishna saw all of this in front of his eyes. And then Lord Shri Krishna thought, finally, Balaram has also returned back. Now it is time for me to conclude my Leela, to conclude my earthly pastimes. Lord Shri Krishna saw one peepal tree at a distance. Lord Shri Krishna went there and sat underneath a peepal tree. A very beautiful description comes in Srimad Bhagavatam about the beauty of the Lord at this point of time. Lord Shri Krishna manifested his brilliant, effulgent, four-handed form. At this point of time, Krishna had exhibited his Vishnu form. His complexion was of the color of a dark blue cloud, and his all auspicious form bore the symbol of Shrivasa. He had a beautiful smile on his face, and he had this dark blue curly hairs around his face. His lotus eyes were very attractive, and he wore a sharp shaped earrings. He wore a silken garment, bright yellow garment, and an ornamental belt, a sacred thread, and a kaustubha jewel, and his body was decorated with flower garlands. Like this, sitting in his auspicious position and situation, with all the four hands holding different weapons, at that point of time, Jara, you remember Jara? The hunter came. He aimed his arrow. Now, this posture is very unique. Generally, Lord Shri Krishna sits with his right leg on his left leg. He keeps his right leg on his left thigh. However, today in this situation, Lord Shri Krishna had kept his left leg on the right thigh, with his shining red lotus feet facing forward direction. So when Jara came into that place, he saw that lotus feet, he saw that red shining feet, and he misunderstood it to be a deer, and he aimed the arrow that he had built with the metal that he had got from the abdomen of the fish. And that was a metal, that was the iron club which Samba had given birth. And Jara aimed at the lotus feet, not knowing it's the feet of the Lord. He aimed thinking that's a deer. He shot, and that arrow pierced the feet of the Lord. And when Jara came running to the spot to see what he had killed, when he came and he was shocked, when he saw it's Lord Vishnu, Lord Shri Krishna there, he fell at the feet. He began to cry. He began to ask for forgiveness. My dear Lord, please forgive me. Please kill me at this point of time. I have committed a great offense. Like this, Jara began to plead. And Lord Shri Krishna had a beautiful smile on his face. And Lord Shri Krishna told to Jara, Jara, this was all my desire. You have only performed what I wanted you to do. So you are not culprit, or you're not culpable for any offense. Jara, you have done your service. Now this is the time for you to return back. And like this, Lord Shri Krishna blessed Jara to return back to spiritual world. Immediately, the Vaikuntha plane Viman came, and Jara got up offered his respects to Lord Krishna, circumambulated Lord Shri Krishna 3 times, climbed up the chariot, and right in front of Lord Shri Krishna, Jara, sitting on the chariot, went back to Vaikuntha. So here question arises, did Jara actually shot Lord Shri Krishna? Which the historians say that Lord Shri Krishna died because of the arrow of Jara. Well, if Krishna died because of the arrow shot by Jara, the question arises, what Jara was doing at a place where millions of Yadus have just died? Millions of Yadus had killed each other, and that whole place was filled with blood. How Jara came at that spot? Didn't he see the massacre? And he came and he saw something like a deer. It's just not possible. The only reason is, as Srimad Bhagavatam says, that was the will of the Lord, and that's what happened. At that point of time, Lord Shri Krishna's charioteer. Does anyone know what's the name of Lord Shri Krishna's charioteer? Who is Lord Shri Krishna's charioteer? Shreyadati? Jagannath? Daruk. Yes. Daruk came at that point of time along bringing the chariot of Lord Shri Krishna. And then Lord Shri Krishna told to Daruk. When Daruk saw Lord Shri Krishna in that situation, he fell at the feet. He began to cry tears. My dear Lord, I had been searching you for all this while. I heard the news of Yadavas fighting with each other. I heard that Balramji also disappeared. I'm so grateful that you have still not left this world, that I got your final darshan. And then Lord Shri Krishna indicated to Daruk, Daruk, now it's the final time for me to conclude my pastimes. And now it is a time for my chariot and all the weapons to go back to spiritual world. Right in front of Lord Shri Krishna, all the weapons of Lord Shri Krishna, as well as the chariot, it began to levitate in the air. It began to fly. And right in front of Daruk, Lord Shri Krishna's weapons, as well as the celestial divine chariot, it went back to spiritual world. But why Lord Shri Krishna did not send Daruk to spiritual world? Daruk was a pure devotee of the Lord. Because Krishna still had one seva for Daruk to perform. Lord Shri Krishna told Daruk, Daruk, please take my message. Go back to the place where our elders, the women and the kids are staying. Go and tell them that how Yadus have killed each other and how Krishna and Balram have disappeared from this world. Tell Arjuna, because Arjuna was there at that point of time. Tell Arjuna to take all of them along with him to Hastinapur, and they should spend their remaining time in the custody of Yudhishthira Maharaj. With that message, and yes, the last message, and tell all of them to immediately leave Dwarka. Why immediately leave Dwarka? Lord Shri Krishna said, as soon as I will disappear, Dwarka will submerge into the ocean. Whole Dwarka will get inundated. So please go right now and tell all my family members to leave immediately along with Arjuna to Hastinapur and leave Dwarka. And with that message, with a heavy heart, with tears in his eyes, Daruk, knowing that he will not get to see Krishna ever again in this lifetime, yet he had to perform the service. Daruk left Lord Shri Krishna. He came back to Dwarka, conveyed the message to everyone, and Arjuna, following the orders of Lord Shri Krishna, rallied everyone back to Hastinapur. With that, the Yaduvamsha, the destruction or the departure of Yaduvamsha happens. Yet Lord Shri Krishna have not disappeared yet. The disappearance and also the glories of Lord Shri Krishna, the role that Lord Shri Krishna played in this whole war of Mahabharata, we will discuss tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll conclude, which I would say one of the most important subject matter of Mahabharata is the role of Lord Shri Krishna, his purpose of descent and his descent, how he disappeared from this world in tomorrow's session. How did the Dwarka resident responded when they heard Krishna and Balaram have disappeared? What did Arjuna do? How did Yudhishthira Maharaj, when Arjuna will tell Yudhishthira Maharaj now that Krishna have disappeared, what did Yudhishthira Maharaj do? How did Pandavas reacted to it? And finally, we'll see tomorrow how Lord Shri Krishna concluded his pastime from this planet Earth. Just like the sun rises every morning and sun sets in the evening, similarly, just like the next day, again sun rises. Similarly, Lord Shri Krishna eternally performs his pastimes from one world to another world. At one point of time, Lord Shri Krishna appears in this world, just like the sunrise happens. And after some time, Lord Shri Krishna disappears from this world, just like the sunset. But sunrise happens again. Similarly, Lord Shri Krishna, along with his eternal associates, continuously performs his transcendental, his pastimes, his leelas all over the universe, all over the universes, time and again, and all the devotees of the Lord take part in this eternal leela of Lord Shri Krishna. With that, we come to a conclusion of today's episode. We come to a conclusion of today's episode, and tomorrow we'll be discussing the second last episode of Mahabharata. And next week, we'll discuss the last episode of Mahabharata, that is the departure of Pandavas, which is given in the 17th and 18th book of Mahabharata. So with that, thank you all for joining us for today evening. One of the greatest epic ever written in this world is about to come to an end. And I sincerely thank all of you for being part of such a big series of discussions. Despite your school schedule, your exams, and also so many other programs which are going for kids. There are so many activities going on, but some of you are still continued. It's fantastic. Thank you all. With that, we conclude our session for today here. Is there any one or two comments? We can quickly take that. I mean to say the questions. Yes, Adi Lakshman. Then I'm coming next to you, Shriram.
Vijay, I have a doubt that how did Rukmini disappear? Did she did Sati, and otherwise
Yes,
how did
so
she disappear?
your question is noted. I'll describe that tomorrow.
Yes, Vijay, one more question.
Adi Lakshman, there is too much background noise, so I have to just mute you. I'll come back to you. Shriram, go ahead.
Prabhuji, I wanted to ask that Samba was a man or a woman? He was a man.
Yeah. Good. That's a homework question for you. Find out.
And Prabhuji,
Okay?
Prabhuji, then I wanted to ask that only, and Prabhuji, what?
Good. So that's my counter question to you. Do a research.
Prabhuji, did that hunter did not go to Jara did not go to Vaikundham?
Yeah, he went to Vaikundham. Lord Shri Krishna sent him back then and there.
Okay, Prabhuji. Did you mean in the slide now? I thought it is written not. Okay, Prabhuji.
Okay, good. Yes, Rajapriya.
Prabhuji, I missed a little bit of it, that how the quarrel began between Satyaki and Kritavarma.
Satyaki blamed Kritavarma. He said, you are a coward because you killed the sleeping sons of Pandavas. Because he had, along with Ashwatthama, attacked
You
the
had
night.
said that they have drink something.
Yeah, they had drank a beverage, and that beverage had an intoxicating effect. And when Kshatriyas are intoxicated, they generally fight. And that's what happened. So Satyaki began to chastise Kritavarma. Kritavarma began to chastise Satyaki. Rishabdev.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, what happened to the group?
Which group?
The WhatsApp group, Wisdom Snippets group.
Oh, the Wisdom Snippets group by our moderator have been changed into Mantra Jam.
Prabhuji, it's gone actually.
Huh?
It's not there in the phone, Prabhu. I'm checking in WhatsApp, it's not there.
Did you leave the group?
No, Prabhu.
So there are two groups, two Wisdom Snippets group because of the size of the audience. So one is still there, and the second Wisdom Snippets group's name have been changed to Mantra Jam. Rishabdev, you can message to the admin, to any one of us. We'll again add you in case you might have been accidentally, removed from the group or you have left the group accidentally. Okay? You can send a message to me or to the admin, anyone. Adi Lakshman.
Who gave the beverage to the that was? Who
Yes.
gave that beverage?
That's a homework question for you, Adi Lakshman. Find out the answer. Now I have to go now because I have something else coming up immediately. I'll take a last question for Varuni. Varuni.
Prabhuji, I wanted to ask that does Krishna, like after Kali Yuga, if there is Satyug again, then does Krishna come again in Treta Yuga in Ram form only and again in Dwapar Yuga in Krishna form only, or will he take some other avatar?
Well, Krishna, at least in these yugas, he comes like that. That is what is described. But we need to know Krishna is independent and Swarat. He can change Treta to Dwapar Yuga activity and Dwapar Yuga activity to Treta Yuga activity, So that he can do that. But generally, that's what happens. In Treta Yuga, Lord Ram appears, and in Dwapar Yuga, Krishna. But Krishna does not come in every Dwapar Yuga. He comes only once in the day of Brahma. So those are the details into it, but that's the point. So with that, thank you all for joining us. For remaining questions, I'll take tomorrow. Okay, Lasya, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I don't have question, but I'm asking, is it true or not? One day Durvasa Muni came to Dwaraka and Krishna gave him kheer, but Durvasa Muni just tasted a little and gave the whole kheer to Krishna and asked him to apply on his whole body. Then Krishna applied, but he didn't apply to his feet, and that's
I've not heard of this story last year. Okay, so I don't know if it is true or false. At least the Mahabharata that I'm referring to doesn't describe. But however, I want to thank.
But I have another question.
Last year, I'll take that question tomorrow because I have a very urgent thing at 8 o'clock. We're meeting tomorrow and we'll spend a good amount of time with all of you. And before we conclude, I want to thank all of you for sending every day your chanting scores. Himangi, Dhruvam, Varuni, Riyansh, Shreya Aditi. Last year, you're also sending, right? Sheeran sends me. And who else sends? Rishabdev sends me, I believe. Vrajpriya, I believe, sends. And a couple of them also. Adi Lakshman, do you also send? Oh, you don't send. You don't chant, huh? So all of you, Jagannath, I don't see your messages. You forgot. What happened? Jagannath got scared. He left the meeting. Okay. All right. Jokes apart. So, and I guess Paki also sends it. Many of you send. So all right, continue doing that. Hare Krishna, Jagadguru, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.